You can be seated. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la.
Something just happened which I've never witnessed before. That is, at the beginning of a funeral service, when Cantor Micah began a soft, contemplative nigun to set the mood, to gather attention, to bring us together as a congregation, what happened? I started hearing the congregation sing with her. That's not something that we see happen. I've never seen that happen. Why did that happen? Because Alan Freeman was the kind of person who gathered around himself doers, the kind of people who understand that if you want something beautiful, you got to go out and make it. From his service to this country, to his partnership with Connie, to the number of community members, professional community members in the Jewish community who are here today, because this family understood that building community is not just about writing checks. We need that too. But it's about showing up. It's about leaning in. And so if ever there was going to be a congregation of loved ones who would take it upon themselves to add to the beauty of the sound in the room, it was going to be this group of people. Death has taken our beloved Alan Freeman. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation. In their tears, there's loneliness. Lost in their sorrow, may they find the presence of loving friends. Hear them, O God, and be with them. For Alan's love that united us in life, and which death cannot sever, for his companionship that we shared along life's path, and which now continues through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and his mind and his smile that brought us joy and happiness. All of these are remembrances now, and so we give thanks to God. In this time of grief, we use the voices of our scriptures, our poets, and our loved ones to bring us the ever new message of God's nearness. We find kinship with the Creator in times of light, as in times of darkness, in times of joy, and in times of sorrow, in times where life is vibrant, and in times when we're focused on death. 96 years old. In the same breath, that's a pretty good run, and it's not enough. As I've been walking through the valley of the shadow of death with Connie and Alan for some time now, it's been reassuring to know that they are surrounded by loved ones, and so the words of the 23rd Psalm begin to ring true. There's no need to fear when you know what you've got surrounding you.
Adonai roi lo echsar bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei manuchot yenaleni nafshi yeshovev Yancheni b'magalei tzedek Yancheni b'magalei tzedek leman shemo Gam ki elech begetz al mavet lo hirara ki ata imadi shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni Taroch lefanai Shulchan neged zorerai Dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orach yamin Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar
For some of you, the words of the 23rd Psalm are deeply written into your memory banks, and you can feel free to join me in the English if you know them. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There are some traditions that emphasize who has earned the right to dwell in the house of Adonai forever in this world. It's not a tradition that Judaism tends to put a strong emphasis on. We don't tend to reward good people with one eternal reality and punish others with another. But in case you're wondering how we do frame the question of who gets to sit with God for the rest of eternity, Psalm 15 says, Adonai, who may abide in your house? Who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak the truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless, but honor those who revere God, who give their word and, come what may, do not retract, who do not exploit others, those who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Connie and I had a conversation about what the last few days have been like. And the word disorienting came up. And she said she's been having that conversation with a number of you who've reached out to show support. And I was thinking about how disorientation is going to be an experience that she becomes familiar with in the immediate future. Here's a poem by Kate Bowler, who wrote, "For all the firsts without a loved one. Oh God, the calendar tells me a big day is coming, and this is the first one in this new reality. I don't know how to get through it. Show me what to do with the memories, the traditions, the pain, and the excruciating beauty of all that was. Blessed are we who come to you, O God, in the midst of grief and loss, fear and longing, irritability and anger, gratitude and sweet remembrances, and so much exhaustion. Grant me solitude enough for solace and company enough for comfort. Grant me people to be with who know how to slip quietly under the burden of this grief and shoulder it with me without much to say. Blessed are we who ask you for permission to do things the same way or completely differently, to wade through raw emotions or to ride on the surface of it all. Give us wisdom and guidance that transcends the strangeness, making whatever little plans are possible. Blessed are we who ask for a way forward during this time to celebrate some small ritual of remembrance that becomes a safe place to store the love and the grief, the anger and the ache of the knowledge that there is no one who can take their place, not one. Blessed are we who ask you, God, to take hold of the fear and us with it and lead us through. And in those moments when we feel lost and we're looking for a beacon, a guide, an anchor, human beings have always understood the gravitas of mountains as the unmovable, reliable orientation. And so when we get lost, it's no surprise that the psalmist said, just lift your eyes to the mountains. There you'll see where the help comes from, in Psalm 121.
Sinai El Harim Me'ayin Yahweh עושה שמיים וארץ, עזרי מעם אדוני. עושה שמיים וארץ, אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. אשא עיני אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי.
Yeah, well, now you're just showing off. As much as we would like to be able to handpick the experiences and the moments through our life's path, it doesn't work that way. And we're subject to the ins and outs and ups and downs of time. And it hasn't changed from the beginnings of human consciousness. And so it's no surprise that Ecclesiastes was able to write the following words 2,500 years ago. He knew that there is a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what's planted. There's a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh. There's a time to grieve and a time to dance. There's a time to throw stones and a time to gather them. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. There's a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard. There's a time to tear and a time to sow. There's a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And when we speak, we bring new Torah into the world. It is how our tradition teaches that God speaks in the world today through the mouths and hearts of human beings who are applying themselves in the deepest seriousness to the ideas being shared. And so when we move to the period of offering eulogies, it's really an opportunity for you to see not just information about Alan and his loved ones, but also the impact of his life, to see that as Torah. And so I'm very honored to be able to invite forward his loved ones to share words of eulogy, hesped, the telling of his life, beginning with his daughter, Meryl.
Well, I've got some serious stuff here, but I'm going to tell a story first. As I was traveling to come here, I realized it was a memory from when I was a child. And you'll have to forgive me for sharing this because it's really stupid and really goofy. But as all of us who have known Dad know that he had a really wry sense of humor, and a quick one. So when I was 5, maybe 6 years old, I had a very existential question to ask my dad. And I said, Dad, why are some eggs white and some eggs brown? And Dad thought about it, and he looked at me and he said, well, Meryl, some chickens just forgot to wipe themselves. And I cannot tell you how many years I believed that. But it's just a really good example of the way he was. And I remember when I finally realized that wasn't true. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit now as I wrote my thoughts down. To say that Dad and I had a complex history is very much an understatement. As it happens sometimes in families, difficult dynamics can be present and can be hard to overcome. My dad's and my journey was very complicated. It was fraught with the gamut of many emotions that ultimately transformed in the last 14 years to redemption, forgiveness, understanding, and healing. And underneath it all was a fierce love for each other that maybe didn't have the healthiest expression at times, but eventually led to reconciliation. Love prevailed. Dad was a remarkable man. He was never college educated, but he was a voracious reader and a self-learner. He had a vocabulary that rivaled most highly educated people and a very quick-witted mind. From difficult beginnings, including running away from home at age 16 to work on a ranch in Mexico, which is one of my favorite stories about him, he eventually became a senior leader in the wholesale glass business. Dad left his full-time job in his 70s, but remarkably, he was so beloved by his clients and so devoted to them that he continued to work part-time until he finally retired at age 94. His strong work ethic and his sense of honesty and integrity and doing the right thing was something that was firmly ingrained into my brother and myself. I consider these qualities one of his greatest gifts to us. In his later years, Dad became very involved in his community and was well respected and liked by all. For many years, he and his friends always met weekly at one of Stamford's famous diners to have lively discussions on all topics. And one of my favorite parts when I visited him was I always got to go to one of these diners with him, either the Lakeside Diner or the Parkway Diner, where I got to witness just how beloved he was to his friends who he was there with and to all of the staff. I'd like to finish with a short poem that really resonated with me. The tide recedes, but leaves behind bright seashells on the sand. The sun goes down, but gentle warmth still lingers on the land. The music stops, and yet it echoes on in sweet refrains. For every joy that passes, something beautiful remains. What's remembered lives, and Dad lives on in all of us. Something beautiful remains.
Meryl, I'm just going to suggest you might want to check the accuracy of that story about when he ran away to Mexico to the ranch. I would just hate for you to find out that it, like the chicken thing, it was a, no, okay. I'd like to invite his son Ian to join us.
Good afternoon. What a life, huh? I kind of want to start with something I think Dad would have appreciated. I did ask Connie and Rachel this morning if I should change my outfit and wear one of those vast collection of Mr. Rogers sweaters he wore all the time. And I did not think it was an appropriate thing to do relative, didn't match the pants, so we'd be okay. It's really fun. What I want to do is I'm only going to speak for a couple of minutes. Dad would have appreciated brevity. And he would have appreciated enough that if I spoke too long, as anybody in here knows who knew him well, he would have fallen asleep on me while I was talking. Anybody remember that? I mean, he would do that while I was talking to him. The only time we ever actually had a problem with that is when he was driving. Just so you know, and we saw that too along the way. Meryl forgot one part of the story though, when Dad ran away when he was 16 to Mexico. Very early on when he got there, he was going somewhere and he saw a group of men who were sitting there, kind of sitting around and popping what looked like candies into into their mouths. And he kind of wandered over there, and what they were popping into their mouths were jalapeno peppers. He was a tough guy from New York. What did he do? I'll do that. He told me it was the only time in his life he involuntarily cried for 30 minutes. True story. But you know, it's an interesting thing. In a funny way, Dad was almost kind of had two lives. You know, for all of us, we go through life, we don't have a playbook. And we learn things and we do what we learn. That's just how life is. We do what we learn. And then we sometimes figure out maybe what we learned isn't the best way or isn't the way we want to be. I remember one time with Dad that I was walking with him, and he said in kind of in a moment of just bravado, or lack of a better word, you know, I really don't have any regrets. And I said, geez, Dad, I had 10 in the last 6 hours, so it makes us even, or maybe that's good for two of us. But that's not who he was, and he spent the majority of the rest of his life unlearning those behaviors. And he became who he was and is to all of us today. It takes a big person to unlearn behaviors. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of introspection. Not an easy thing to do. And he did it. And he did it and then some. And I remember sitting with him at one of those diners one day, and he was lamenting to me some of the things he had wished. And I just grabbed his hands and said, you're forgiven. We all do this. We all live this. But you had the guts to unlive it. And the last part of his life, the majority of the years in his life, look who he became to the community, to all of you in here, to all of us. Just a remarkable person. So at the end of the day, what I would say is the highest compliment to me is Dad was amazingly and spectacularly human. And that's what we love. Rest in peace, Dad.
I don't know that I can invite the next set of comments without first sharing Rabbi Alvin Fine's poem in response to Ian's observation. And it may have been more pronounced in Alan, but it's true for each of us that birth is a beginning and death is a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey itself, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life everlasting. I'd like to invite Carol Ann to join us for a few words from Arthur Cirillo.
Yes, we all struggle with vertical issues. This is from my brother. I'm Carol Ann. I'm the middle of four. I loved Alan right from the start because he made Connie happy. What wasn't to love? He was tall, Jewish, handsome, and silver-haired. He was also kind, thoughtful, and had a great sense of humor. Plus, he had a lot of class. Alan understood me and always supported me. When I was in trouble many years ago, he was there to help. I will miss our spirited conversations about sports, politics, and beyond. Alan was one of a kind. I will miss him dearly. I love you, Alan. Farewell. And this was not scripted, but I have a couple of things. So Alan and I had an admiration society. I was his favorite sister-in-law, sorry, Cynthia. And he was my favorite brother-in-law. When you had a conversation with Alan, he was all in. He listened. He was the most supportive, loving, just a spectacular, bright light. And I will miss him, but I'll have wonderful memories forever.
Rachel, can I invite you to join us?
I'm an older millennial, so I don't have a working printer. So mine is on my phone. Okay. My dad would text me the weather every day, even when I was on vacation. It included the high and the low temperatures, the dew point, the real feel, anything you could possibly need to know. He was rarely angry with me, at least, but the few times he was disappointed were the worst days of my life. He once drove around Stamford looking for me and Dana Kraus because I may have said I was at her house and she may have said she was at my house, and we may have been in an abandoned house in North Stamford. So thank God we didn't have phones or Ring cameras. That also may or may not have been one of the times he was disappointed, but Mexico's been brought up a couple of times. We each have our own experience with it, but my dad tried to give me a curfew when I was already in college, yet he hopped a bus to Mexico when he was 16 without telling his parents, and then he stayed for months, and his biggest regret, he said, was telling me that story, because I certainly reminded him. When I got my first speeding ticket, Big Al helped me get a bank check to pay the city so my mom wouldn't find out. And then she opened my mail anyway, so she found out. He and I were quite a team, usually against my mom, much to her dismay. I could do no wrong in his eyes, except for those couple of times. The speeding ticket of mine led to other tickets in my life, which resulted in me having to attend driver retraining, which was a class that Big Al was familiar with. He had to go on the morning of Rosh Hashanah, since he had postponed so many times. Big Khan was not very pleased with that timing. And when he ran into one of his employees there, they were shocked and asked what he was doing there. His response, because I got caught. Which was a similar response when I went to my retraining, so I think I got that from him. I don't know how he put up with me at times. John D'Amico and I would take his Crown Vic for joy rides around Stamford. We also put the house on the market while he and Big Con were on vacation, even using their real phone number, which I think was the best part, actually. But I think some of my shenanigans kept him on his toes and maybe kept him younger. He loved birds, and I can't be within a foot of them without wanting to scream. The Yankees, Giants, and Knicks were sacred to him and are to us. That sweep was because of him, so you're welcome. Go Knicks. He once told Noah that he'd disown him if he became a Red Sox fan. Noah was 4 at the time. He was the most negative fan of all time, too. He couldn't say any, even if they won everything, there was something wrong. They left somebody on bed, whatever, it was terrible. And he passed that on to me. Big Al never missed a swim meet or a recital. He never missed a marching band competition in his infamous West Hill band jacket. And if anyone else called him Al, he lost his mind, but somehow he allowed me to do it and every friend of mine that he ever met. He was my safe place and my biggest supporter. It felt like he was invincible. And even though he was an older dad, especially compared to a lot of my friends, he didn't present that way because of who he was as a person. I will miss him every day forever, and I was the luckiest daughter to have had him as my Big Al.
And finally, I'd like to invite Connie to share her thoughts.
My sister Cynthia is here because she's the person who cries the least in our family. So I'm going to try this. Okay. So first, I have a few thank yous. We are so lucky to have dozens of wonderful family, friends, and neighbors who are always here to visit, help out, give us rides, bring food, and to simply let us know they cared. Rabbi Telrav, Cantor Micah, Shelley, Jane, Jeremy, Max, Larry, and our Temple Sinai family, and our Havurah family gave us solace and helped in so many ways. We want to thank the Senior Men's Club of Stamford for remembering Alan throughout the year. I want to thank my wonderful sisters and brother, my brothers-in-law and sister-in-law, my nieces and nephews, all our cousins, my niece Alexis, our brilliant and always on-call family doctor, daughter Meryl, a consultant on all things physical therapy and beyond, son Ian for his many visits. Where is Ian? He's right there. And he literally called every single day to check in and see how he could help. And daughter-in-law Lori, who sent her love via our Facebook chats. And finally, daughter Rachel. During this very long year, she juggled taking care of Alan and me, talking to all the doctors and therapists, helping to make decisions about Alan's care, all while establishing and growing her practice, taking care of Noah, making dozens of round trips back and forth from Brookfield. She was simply amazing. People said, or simply thought, that our marriage wasn't a good idea because of the large age difference. But it never mattered to us because Alan was forever young. Everyone loved Alan. Whenever I met someone, they'd say, "Hi, how's Alan?" And I was happy to play second fiddle to him. He was a wonderful husband, father, and grandfather. He was warm, generous to a fault, so kind to family, friends, and community, easy to please, and selflessly indulgent of his tempestuous wife's foibles and fanaticisms. He loved his family and mine. He would talk with my mother and father for hours. He adored his brother Marty, of blessed memory, and loved talking with his cousin Donald, of blessed memory, and his wife Sherry, cousin Roger, and his niece Jackie, and cousins Sorrel and Judy, and Shelley and Brett, who are here today with us. Alan believed in the importance of philanthropy and community, serving on the committees and boards of the JCC, UJF, JFS, and Hadassah Associates, and he was a longtime volunteer at Back to School Shop. He was honored with the Mitzvah Award by JFS and as a role model by the JCC. It was his wish that we became members of the Society of Major Donors at Hadassah and the Life and Legacy program here in Stamford. Ever the volunteer, Alan was still helping JFS on the board for well over 20 years. As Matt Greenberg has said, Alan was his hero. He just kept going and doing and living life to the fullest. Alan was the one to whom family, friends, many colleagues, and former business associates turned when they needed wise counsel and understanding. Very proud father to Meryl, Ian, and Rachel, his 3 unique, talented, and loving children. You can clearly see Alan in each of them. And Noah was his pride and joy, and shares his blue eyes, happy disposition, and that sparkling smile. The supreme salesman, Alan's indefatigable work ethic in business and philanthropy, his gregarious love of people, his winning smile, and wild, sometimes corny sense of humor, his appreciation of nature, beautiful blooms and calling birds, and his understanding of life's pleasures and pain all explain why he was admired and loved by so many. He mentored innumerable people. We were always getting calls from people who'd worked or volunteered with him to say how much he'd helped them in their careers and in life, or just called to talk and see how he was doing. I'll miss his beautiful singing voice at services at Temple Sinai and his repetitive dad jokes. He was the best editor of my writing and coach for my speeches. He loved to travel, starting with Hong Kong when I was 2 months pregnant, to Europe, to Israel, which he loved several times, and all over the country, visiting family and friends, going to shows and concerts, walking at Cove Beach, being with their kids, just watching Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune every night. And as a crazy sports fan, as Rachel and everyone has pointed out, when not watching his beloved Yankees, Giants, Knicks, and UConn basketball, as he'd say, I'd watch a moving dot. Every morning, long after he'd arrived at work, and again, Rachel mentioned this, he'd call me and Rachel and give us the weather and road conditions before we ventured out. That was who he was. Having been married to Alan for 42 years, I can truly say that I was the luckiest woman ever. I will miss everything about Alan, and I will love him forever.
I need to say one thing. I'm the less favored sister-in-law who doesn't cry. But I would like to say that Alan was really loved by my children, Alexis and Joe, particularly Alexis, who decided to come east for college. And much to my chagrin, Alan insisted we stop in New Haven first. And I didn't like New Haven, didn't think it was a very safe place. And he said, oh, you gotta stop. Anyway, needless to say, Alexis chose to be in New Haven. And Alan regularly would pick her up and she'd spend the weekends with Connie and Alan and Rachel. And the only thing, and Rachel really, really treasured those times, treasured Alan, but she did fear for her life whenever they were on the Merritt Parkway and Alan started to fall asleep. So anyway, they send their love.
In the Talmud, there's a demonstration about the difference between what humans can do and what God can do. And the mechanism for holding up the two in juxtaposition is that when a human creates a form for a coin and mints the coins, they all come out identical. But when God takes the form of a human, and of course in the stories of our people, it begins with just two, Adam and Eve. When God prints out person after person after person, they all come out different. And I don't know another person like Alan Freeman. What a remarkable experience it has been to have him in my life, even for too few years. And I will miss him terribly. We're going to continue with the words of Elamale Rachamim, which, as Ian finished so beautifully, just finishes with the simple words, rest in peace. It's time for you to rest in peace. If you're able, would you please rise?
El male rachamim, shochen b'mromim, hametzeh menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim utahorim, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים לנשמת יקירנו שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו Adonai hu nachalato. Ve'anuach b'shalom al mishkavo. Ve'nomar Amen.
God, who is so very full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to our loved one, Alan Freeman, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. From here, we will go in procession to the Independent Lodge Cemetery on Hoyt Street. If you plan to join us, know that it is apparently not an easy walk from parking up to the cemetery, and so if mobility is an issue for you, you may want to show your support in other ways. This afternoon, the family will be observing Shiva here at Temple Sinai from 5:30 till 7:30. Again tomorrow night, the same time, with services each evening at 6:30. I'll invite you in a moment as we leave this space to turn your bodies towards the center aisle so that Connie and Meryl, Ian and Lori and Rachel, thank you very much, and Noah can walk between their family of choice, surrounded on both sides by love and support. Are there pallbearers who've been identified to come forward? Kol Omer Kara, the Amar Ma'ekra, Kol Habasar, Nasir, Kol Hato, Sis Masale, Yamesh Katsir Natatsis, the Ruach Adonai Shalo. Achen Katsir Ha'am, Yamesh Katsir Natatsis,
Oh, say shalom bimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. this completes our service here at Temple Sinai.